Okay, we want to welcome everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Mary, I need you to give me thumbs up over there, everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here on another platform of Women of Wisdom, courageous conversations, real talk, and infusing God in all matters. Today, I want to welcome Dr. Richardson. I know she has a wealth of knowledge and she's very passionate about having us deal with less stress in our lives. I don't say we're not going to have stress, but I believe we need to learn how to deal with it better, manage it. We've been talking about that. Dr. Richardson is out of Arizona, so it's 12 o'clock over there and it's 3 o'clock over here. So I want to thank her for adjusting her time to our time and just being here in our presence. And we hope this is not her last visit, but an additional visit of many visits. And we want to just welcome you. So everybody, we're going to give an air clap. We do air claps, Dr. Richardson, just to let you know that we appreciate you. We thank you in advance. So when you're ready, you can get started because I don't want to take up a lot of your time. I want you to feel comfortable and be able to say the things you need to say. And after Dr. Richardson speaks or in between her session, if she wants to ask if anyone has any questions, in between, it's up to Dr. Richardson. Dr. Richardson, the floor is yours. Thanks again.
Thank you guys for having me. I apologize. I am in my room because I have people all over the house today and I didn't want to let them be in our private space. So anytime I speak with a group, I take it very seriously and I want the place to be a safe place. So if anything comes up or comes out or you want to ask questions, just know that it's a safe place. And so this was my safe place today. So this is where I am. Matter of fact, let me turn the light on to get a little bit brighter. Alexa, turn on the light. So I'm really excited to speak with you guys today. As Kimberly said, I am a licensed physician in the state of Arizona. I specialize in sexual and reproductive health and mental health. Those are my two areas of specialty out here. I'm a naturopathic physician. So what that means is I don't use medicine first. It's not saying that I don't use medicine if we need it, but I try not to use medication as my first resort. I try to be more holistic in my approach. My goal with everyone that I come across is to motivate and empower them to be the best versions of themselves mentally, physically, and emotionally. And so I deal with the whole person no matter what they're seeing me for. So Ms. Kimberly asked me to speak to you guys today about stress and managing stress and different ways that we can do that. And so I did prepare a little brief presentation. If you have any questions at the end, I'll have questions, or if you, some people get kind of like shy and don't want to speak, you can put them in the chat. And by putting them in the chat, I will read them and I will answer your questions for you. But if you have any questions, just let me know and I'm more than willing to go ahead and do that. So I am going to share my screen with you all. Start the presentation. Oops. So I love the topic of stress, not because I'm just like so in love with stress, but because stress is something that we all deal with, whether we acknowledge it or not. So there are times where we're stressed and we may not recognize that we're stressed because we're really good at doing that, right? We're really good at pushing through no matter what and making sure we get done what we have to get done with. Most of my clients are women, and so I deal with us on a daily basis. And we as women are really good at ignoring ourselves to make sure that everybody else is taken care of and we get everything else done. And that itself can cause more stress. And I don't think we really stop to realize what we're doing to our physical body because of the stress and our mental and emotional. So it was a good way to talk about stress and to give you guys some ways to help manage your stress and to help prepare you to go through these stressful situations. Because like Kim said earlier, we can't avoid stress. Stress happens. But what we can do is we can create an environment that we live in of peace and joy. And in that environment, no matter what comes at us, no matter what stress is thrown at us, we can maintain our peace and joy. We can protect ourselves, and then we can make sensible decisions on how to handle what is thrown at us without it causing any problems further. Let's just get started. We're going to talk about what stress is, how it affects our bodies, the different side effects of stress, and then some natural treatment options that you guys can start implementing on today. So stress. Stress is a feeling of emotional and physical tension. That's literally the definition of stress. It can be brought on by an event or thought. So there can be a stressful event that happens and can cause stress, but you can be under stress due to your own thoughts, to your own emotional concerns and problems, to your own traumas that you haven't dealt with. Those can cause stress as well. So you can be under stress because of what's happening around you, and you can be under stress because of what's happening within you. So stress can be brought on by multiple different things. So some of the ways that stress affects the body, and this isn't something that's talked about and it's really important, is that stress itself is going to trigger within our body a lot of physiological responses, meaning our body goes into multiple different reactions to make sure that it can maintain us throughout the stressful situation. We have what's called our autonomic nervous system. So this is a part of your nervous system, and one of its functions is to help you respond to stress. So your autonomic nervous system, one of its parts, its functions is to help you to respond to stress. And so this autonomic nervous system, it also controls many bodily functions like your blood pressure, respiration, digestion, visual, and even your sexual function. They're all controlled by this autonomic nervous system. You have two parts to your autonomic nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic autonomic nervous system. So in simpler terms, the sympathetic nervous system is called fight or flight. This is when something happens and our body prepares us to fight it or to run from it. So back in the day when we had to hunt for our own food and a bear came, we would either prepare to fight for the bear or run from the bear. And so what happens in our bodies is preparing ourselves for that fight or for that run. And so when we're in that sympathetic mode or in that stress mode, there's some other functions that would happen during parasympathetic that aren't going to be happening. We're not going to be able to digest our food. We're getting blood flow only to our core and to our main muscle groups, our major muscle groups, so we can run or fight. So full oxygenation is not happening. It can eventually, under long-term things, is going to imbalance your sleep hormones and your regular sex hormones. And for us, our estrogens and our progesterones and our testosterones can all get out of balance while we're in the sympathetic mode. Your parasympathetic system is when we call rest or digest. This is when you can relax, your pupils relax, you can, your saliva starts to flow again, you can start breathing, and oxygenation is happening throughout the full body. Your heart rate isn't as fast. And then you can start digesting food. You can have what's called peristalsis and secretions. So this is when your body is actually going to push the food through. It's going to break everything down and get all the nutrients that you need. So when we're under high stress things, we aren't even getting full nutrition from our food because our body's not focused on getting that at that moment. It's focused on us surviving the stressful situations. And also being under high stress, this is why you see a lot of people now, it's more common to have a lot of gastrointestinal problems. Acid reflux, ulcers, food sensitivities, leaky gut. They can't eat like they used to. They've got gas, bloating, abdominal pain. All of that can be related to high stress situations. So we have two little organs. If you look at this picture here, so these two little diamond-shaped organs, organs that sit on top of your kidneys, they're called your adrenals. They're really little, but your adrenals are what actually release your stress hormones. These stress hormones are going to be cortisol, which you may have heard of, and adrenaline, which is norepinephrine and epinephrine. They are made here in your adrenals. Some of your sex hormones are made in your adrenals as well, but very, very little. Most of those are made in your actual ovaries, but some of your sex hormones are made in your adrenals. So what happens is when you're under stress, your adrenals are going to start secreting these stress hormones. So now you're going to have increased cortisol being released into your body constantly. And eventually, over long periods of time, when we're chronically stressed, your adrenals can become fatigued. And I have fatigued in quotations because that's not the medical term, but that's more the more common terms where you hear people talk about adrenal fatigue. And so your adrenals just become tired because they're constantly working and they can't keep up with the demand. And so then you're going to start having problems with your circadian rhythm. Your sleep becomes off. You get dysregulated hormones. Ladies, you'll notice, and it's not just ladies, but because I'm talking to ladies today, we get moody. Our mood fluctuates, very liable. So we can be happy 1 minute and then just the slightest thing can set us off. And then we're not happy anymore. You have these joint pains that aren't associated with anything else. They're just there all of a sudden. You feel like if you have arthritis, your arthritis has worsened. Decreased metabolism happens as well because of this stress. And it's something that we really have to take into account. Another thing that puts us into stress, and I missed this and I want to go back to that, is being African American in the society that we live in today. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, it puts on another level of stress for us. One, we've been taught certain ways that we have to operate and function since we were children just to survive. And the political climate that we live in now, especially if you're watching the news, we're constantly re-traumatized with another hashtag say their name. There's another person. All of these things keep us in a state of constant stress and anxiety. And so this is adding to the different physiological problems that are happening within our bodies that we need to make sure we are addressing or acknowledging at least. So some of the side effects that you might notice if you are under high stress and you might not know that they're associated with stress. Fatigue, because remember, it helps with our cortisol levels. So our cortisol levels are typically going, get out. My puppy just opened the door. I'm sorry. Our cortisol levels should typically be high in the morning and then low in the evening. And so that way we can go to sleep and when we need to go to sleep. But what happens is when we're under constant stress, our cortisol levels can be high the whole time, or they can fluctuate. We're not getting proper sleep. We fall asleep and then we wake up in the middle of the night wide awake. We can't fall asleep at all, or we do sleep, but we just wake up and just have no energy. All of that can be because of stress. You might start noticing brain fog and memory loss. You're having problems with simple word recall. You have sexual dysfunction, so your libido is low. You may have some vaginal dryness, anorgasmia, which is just the inability to have orgasms. All of that can be because of stress. Insomnia, like I said, sleep problems, weight gain. So you may have gained weight and then you can't lose the weight even when you put forth the effort. And usually stress weight is right in our midsection. This is our bellies. That's where the stress weight comes from. And we hold on to it. And so you have that weight gain and ability to lose weight, or then you also have hormonal imbalances. Sorry, hormonal imbalance. There we go. So when we start talking about our hormonal imbalances, we need to talk about, in women, we have this triangle. So our thyroid is connected to our adrenals, which is connected to our sex organs, our ovaries. And so the adrenals is going to be those stress hormones. The thyroid is producing our thyroid hormone. And then our sex organs is producing our estrogens, progesterones, and testosterone, right? And so they're all connected. So if one is really stressed, the other two work hard to kind of maintain the balance because they work in sync. If one isn't working properly, the other two are overworking to try to remain in sync. It's always an up and down, and you want it to be balanced so none of them have to work too hard. And then what happens is when one works too hard, the others are working extra hard to keep up. Eventually, they can't keep up either, and we just see this domino effects of our hormones just tanking. And so now you might not only have adrenal fatigue and you can't sleep and you've gained weight. Now you may have estrogen dominance because your hormones are imbalanced. Estrogen dominance is what can lead to PCOS and fibroids. It contributes to PCOS and fibroids. Estrogen dominance doesn't mean that you have a whole lot of estrogen necessarily. It can mean that, but estrogen dominance may just mean you have more estrogen than you do progesterone. And so now there's an imbalance there, but your estrogen can be low and your progesterone can be low too. So it's just a matter of how that works. You have decreased testosterone. For us ladies, testosterone helps with our libido. It helps with our mood. Testosterone makes us feel happy. And so when we have decreased testosterone, again, this is going to lead to that moodiness. You may all of a sudden, you've never had thyroid problems, and now all of a sudden you have a hypothyroid problem, and you can't understand why you developed it. When you go through menopause, it's very likely that you could start developing hypothyroid. It's a very common side effect of menopause. And again, it's just because they're all connected. And when you go through menopause, you stop making estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. And so now the thyroid has worked really hard because it doesn't understand the imbalance, and then it gets tired, and then you develop hypothyroid. So that's one of the things that happens too, just for those, that can be part of that transition. And when you're under high stress, since we're talking about that transition, when you're under high stress, it can make menopause worse. So it can intensify the symptoms of menopause, being under stress and not having addressed it as well. So that's something to remember. Again, the sexual function, if you are active, you may notice your libido is low. You may not be able to have orgasms. You may have vaginal dryness. That can be because of stress. It also can be because of the hormone imbalance and that happens during the time. So these are all things that you have to keep in mind. All right, so we kind of got a background on what stress can do. So let's talk about some ways that we can help stress. And that's kind of what we're here for. How do we manage it? What are some natural ways that we can help with stress? Oh, come on. There we go. So one of the big things that I tell people is, because even though it's like, okay, I have stress, let's do some physical things. You cannot ignore your mental and emotional health. We are a full being, right? We are a full being. And so you have to make sure we're addressing that mental and emotional health. For us, being Christians, this is making sure that we're dealing with our soul and our spirit. That's our mental and emotional, our soul and our spirit. And so we need to make sure that we are taking care of that, because that's going to help us manage stress as well. So I wanted to add in, and to this, since this was a place where I could do this, I wanted to add in some of the ways that we can deal with that. There's a famous saying called by Sir William Osler that says, "The organs cry tears, the eyes never shed." The organs cry tears, the eyes never shed. What that means is when we have mental and emotional things that we don't deal with, that we ignore, that we, you know what, that hurts right now, I don't really have time to deal with that. Or I have a family, I have to be strong, I can't cry, I can't handle this. Nope, I'm gonna pack this away. I'm not gonna deal with it. What happens is, over time, those things get packed away, they don't disappear. It's just like when you were in school and you learned the properties of energy, and that energy doesn't disappear. It just gets transmuted into a different form of energy, right? It never goes anywhere. That's what happens with our emotions. Just because we didn't deal with it in that moment didn't mean it disappeared. We kind of just pushed it in the back part of our mind, but now it's being stored in our body physically. And eventually you can start having physical ailments that are attached to undealt with traumas. And when I say trauma, I'm not necessarily saying just it has to be a big trauma. It doesn't have to be that you went to war. It doesn't have to be abuse, which abuse is common. 3 out of 4 women experience some form of physical or sexual abuse at the hands of a partner, or at the hands of someone they know. That's 75% of the women. That's very common. And that's 75% of women who report it. So I can believe that it's probably even higher than that. So it's that when you don't deal with trauma, can just be someone hurt your feelings and you didn't deal with it. And then what happens is, when we don't deal with those things, they get pushed away, but then someone else may hurt your feelings again and again and again. And each time someone new hurts your feelings, what you'll notice is that the response to the person becomes more and more and more than ever before. And you're like, wow, did I overreact? What caused that blow up? It's because you've got layers and layers and layers and layers of undealt with emotional stuff. And so now that trigger was just, they said something, and yes, you may have been mad or hurt, but you responded as if they were the ones who did all of the anger, all of the hurt over the years, and you haven't dealt with it. And that's what triggers are. And so we have to deal with those, so we aren't in a constant state of being triggered, so we can live in complete liberation and freedom, and where we're not being controlled by our emotions. They're things that we feel and we acknowledge, and they can lead and guide us, but we won't be controlled by them. So you have to deal with, first, guilt and shame. A lot of us hold on to different guilts or different shames. We didn't do this right. We made these mistakes, and we get stuck in a state of condemnation where we ourselves can't let ourselves be free. And the Bible says in Romans 8:1, therefore there now is no condemnation, right, to those who are in Christ. And so if we are women of God, that we should never be in a state of condemnation. We should not feel that guilt and shame. Because if nothing else, we know that God gave his life for us and he loves us enough that he forgives us for everything we've done anyway. He knew you were going to do what you did before you did it. And there's no such thing as perfection as a human. You're going to make mistakes. Acknowledge those mistakes, learn the lessons that you have to learn from those mistakes, but don't hold on to any guilt and shame for those mistakes. And these can be mistakes you've made in your personal life. You could have made mistakes in parenting, mistakes in the decisions that you made for your career, in your marriage. This can cover anything. You have to let go of guilt and shame. Acknowledge your faults. Acknowledge what we call those shadow parts of our personality, those things that may seem bad and dark. Acknowledge those. Understand them, learn from them, but do not hold on to them, because they will become like anchors and they hold you where you are. And you're praying and you're praying and you're praying for deliverance and you're praying to go to this next level and you really want God to take you somewhere, and you find yourself like it's like you hit the ceiling every time. And you're like, God, break this ceiling so I can be free. And he's like, there's not a ceiling. You are being anchored down by your past traumas and emotions that you haven't dealt with. And you've prayed for me to deliver them. And when I bring them up, you push them back down. So you pray for God to deliver you and you're like, okay. And in that moment you feel good, right? Because it can be an emotional experience. And then you get home and you start thinking, and you may, all of a sudden there may be this thought of something that happened like 5 years ago. And you're like, I've been delivered for that. I'm not dealing with it. And so you still pushed it right back instead of allowing those things to come up and allowing us to process them. And so one of the ways that we, and I'm going to talk about how we can process those emotions and feelings, because that happens. And we aren't ever taught how to really process these things, right? And so all we know how to do is be like, nope, I'm not dealing with this. Nope, I've been delivered. Nope, nope, nope. And so we just push it back down and we never get that complete freedom that we've been praying for. And so we pray for this deliverance experience, but we never walk in our deliverance. And so then we find ourselves at the altar praying for the same thing over and over again, instead of actually getting that thing and walking it out. So there's no condemnation. Do what you can do. Don't feel bad for things you can't do. Don't feel bad for things you can't control. Give yourself grace, especially like in this last year, we've been in a pandemic. There's been so many things out of our control and so many things we may have wanted to accomplish and we couldn't accomplish. There may have been goals we wanted to complete and we didn't get there. And sometimes we can be our worst critic. We can be so hard on ourselves, and putting that negative energy on yourself can do more harm than it can. Do what you can do. Do the best you can. But what you can't do, you just couldn't do. And don't feel guilty or sad about what you couldn't do. Put it on the list. It'll get done eventually. Prayer and meditation, not just because we're Christians, but even in science, it has been shown in research that when you pray, people who are going through major health crises and major mental health crises as well, those who pray and meditate have better outcomes, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Because at this point, as we know, when we're praying, we are kind of releasing those burdens. And so you need to make sure we're having a strong prayer life. Everyone prays differently. There's no right or wrong way to pray. There's just you pray. You go to God and you tell him what you need. Meditation. Philippians 4:8, I have it here. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think on these things, right? That's what Philippians tells us to do, to think on these things. This is just a form of meditation. Meditation is when, so there's meditation and affirmations. Meditation is when we kind of sit and we kind of try to quiet ourselves and just be in a peaceful, positive place. Thoughts sometimes come up because you can't completely shut your mind off. You let them come up and then you let them go out. And then you get back to that peaceful place. And it helps you, teach you mindfulness. It helps you to be present in the moment that you're in now. Because for so many of us, we're constantly thinking about what we got to do next, what we got to fix, what we have to get accomplished. What does the kids need? What does the husband need? What does the household need? What do I need to get so I can make sure we're ready for this trip in 2 months? We're always constantly in the future or in the past, and we don't live in the moment. And so meditation is a great way to be mindful, and so you don't miss the amazing things that are happening in the moments that you're in. So meditation kind of helps ground you and bring you back into your moments. Affirmations, we say over and over and over again to change the way we think, right? Because we need to fix our thoughts on what's true and honorable. I think someone's microphone might be on.
Yes, we need you guys to mute. If your mic is on, please check it and mute it. Thank you. Sorry, Doc.
No, you're good. So with affirmations, this is a good way if we're struggling to put ourselves in a positive mindset, we're struggling to be in this in a peaceful place. Affirmations are a great way to start that. These are things you say to yourself over and over and over again daily. You keep saying them. Even when you don't believe them in the beginning, you keep saying them. But what happens is after a while, we've fixed our thoughts, right? On what is true, honorable, right, pure, lovely, admirable. We've done this thing because this is what is pleasing before the sight of God. We've done these things, and soon our brain starts believing these things, and it becomes second nature. And these are the thoughts that we have. So affirmations are very important. Intentional self-care. Self-care has become like a popular term. It's kind of like a fad. Everyone is talking about self-care. So, but self-care is actually something you need for your health. Self-care is when you stop and you do something that's going to benefit you physically, mentally, and emotionally. So your prayer and meditation is a part of your self-care. Your affirmations is a part of your self-care. We talk about journaling, that's a part of your self-care. Getting massages is a part of your self-care because it's good for your physical body. Some of the other things that I'm going to recommend in a little bit that you can do physically, that's a part of your self-care. So you need to be intentional with self-care, and you may need to schedule your self-care. Some people can get so busy that we don't have time for ourselves, right? We get so busy because we need to do everything for everybody else, because we, as women, we make ourselves everything to everybody, even though that's not what we were called to do. And that's a whole nother topic when we change our role and we become everything to everybody, but that's not what we were called to do. There's only one person that I know who can be everything to everybody. And so when we start trying to make ourselves to be everything to everybody, we are kind of making ourselves to be like an idol, right? But like I said, we won't go into that conversation. So you can't be everything to everybody, but you need to make sure you're being intentional to you make time for yourself. 30 minutes a day. That's like 2% of your day. 30 minutes is only 2% of the day. And we struggle with giving ourselves 30 minutes a day to do something just for us. So that means you're giving 98% of your time to 98 to 100% of your time all the way to something else and to not taking care of ourselves. So when you think about it like that, give yourself that 2% a day to be intentional and schedule your self-care. Schedule, you can do power hours. And so power hours is when you have 1 hour a day. It can be the same time every day. And in that power hour, you can do 20 minutes of meditation, 20 minutes of reading and affirmations, and then like 20 minutes, or what I do is I sit and for 20 minutes and I schedule out my day. So I make sure I've prioritized what I need to get done. So I have a goal, I have a plan for the day. And that's just an hour. So now that's 4% of my day, but I spent it on me. And that kind of puts you in a better mood and a better mind frame as you get through the day as well. It may not be feasible for you to do a power hour. So you need to be honest with yourself with what you can do, but you need to make sure that you start making you a priority. You are no good to no one else if you haven't been taking care of yourself. So we need to make ourselves a priority. There's nothing wrong with taking care of us first. We get taught that that's selfish, and as women, we have to be selfless. But that is not the selfish where you are, because this kind of selfish is the type of thing that you have to do so that you can be there for others. You can't fulfill your purpose if you don't take care of yourself. You'll be running on empty, and we don't want that. So be intentional with your self-care and make sure that we are planning out our self-care. Journaling and mindfulness. The one thing that I love about journaling is one of those things we just said, the organs cry tears, the eyes never shed. Journaling is one of those ways that you will allow yourself to process your emotions and to get them out. Because when you're journaling, everything that's coming up, you put it on that paper, it comes out. There's no right or wrong way to journal. You can have a page that just has like 4 words on it, but those 4 words are what were true for you at that moment. It doesn't have to be proper grammar. It doesn't have to have any punctuation. It can be run-on sentence. It can all be one sentence. It can be from subject to subject. You can be all over the place, but that's what's coming up, and so you get it out. That's one way to get with to allow your emotions to come up. And when they come up, when things come up in your writing, allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. You can feel anger. you can feel sadness. You can feel joy. You can feel all of these different emotions. Allow yourself to feel them. If you need to, sometimes when I'm feeling this, I'm like, especially if I'm not clear with what it is, why am I sad right now? What is going on? What is coming up? Is this something that I need to deal with? And by dealing with it, I'm meaning, is this something that I need to sit with, think about, process how it made me feel in the moment? Sometimes things come up. I've had things come up from when I was in elementary school. And you're like, I didn't even remember that this happened. And all of a sudden it came up. And there were so many different emotions because someone hurt me in this time. And I go back and I'm like, well, how did that make me feel? And how has that contributed to where I am today? And what has been building on that? And you sit and you just think about those things. And that's how you allow yourself to process it. And with time, that emotion leaves. It's just like grief. Grief is a good example, because when you're grieving someone, and some grief can come not just from death, right? Not from like a physical death. You can grieve the loss of a friendship. Because as you are being elevated and as you are being taken to places, there are connections that get cut, because those connections are like some anchors too, and everyone can't go with you everywhere. And those can be hard times when you're losing people and you don't quite understand it and you don't understand what went wrong. And sometimes we blame ourselves for the ends of some relationships, but sometimes it's not us. Sometimes God is strategically cutting some cords so he can take you where you need to go. But in that moment, you still have grief, because that's the end of something that you valued, that you treasured. Allow yourself to feel sad. It's okay to feel sad that you had to end that friendship. It's okay to miss someone. It's okay. It's okay. Like we have to normalize being okay with feeling what it is we feel. It's okay. What we don't want to do is we don't want to get stuck in that feeling, meaning now I've been sad and I can't shake this sadness and it's been months. We don't want to get stuck, but it's okay to feel what we feel. Write down what you're feeling. Write down why you're feeling it. I'm sad because I miss this person. This person was X, Y, and Z, and this person was important to me because of ABC. And then, but after a while, you'll see that you'll get strength from allowing yourself to feel and move past it. And then you can move on. And so that's what journaling is. And mindfulness is making sure that every now and then throughout the day, just check in with yourself. Sometimes I'll just stop and I'll look and I'll be like, what's 5 things I can see? This is really good too for people who get anxious. It's a great way to stop anxiety. You look around, find 5 things you can see. What are 4 things that I would be able to smell here? What are 3 things that I can hear? Doing that, it kind of connects you back into the moment that you're in, because sometimes, again, like I said, we can get all over the place, and just come back and be grounded and centered and be mindful of where you are so you don't miss the joys of today worrying about tomorrow, right? And that's talked about too in the Bible, where he says, don't worry about tomorrow. If he's taking care of the birds, he's definitely going to take care of you. Sorry, a little delay. I wanted to talk about some herbs. One thing about herbs. So I'm a naturopathic doctor. I use a lot of plants and herbs in my treatments. And I like to give people just examples of herbs that you can add into your daily routine. If you have no experience using any herbal remedies, make sure you do your research before you start them. Just because they grow out of the ground doesn't mean that it cannot be dangerous. It can be if not taken properly. It can interact with your medications if you're on medications. Don't stop taking a medication and replacing it with an herb because you've heard that it would do the same thing. Make sure you consult with a professional. And some of your doctors may not have the knowledge to be able to give you advice on herbs. So make sure you might have to find a doctor. I know that there are naturopathic doctors in New York. I don't know many, but I know that there are some in the New York City as well. But you can always consult. They're all over the United States, and a lot of people now are doing telehealth. So you can consult with someone in Arizona. You can consult with someone in Connecticut. There's all different places that you can consult with people. So if you don't know herbs, make sure you consult with them. I'm just giving you some of the herbs that I use that are very helpful, that help with stress. They help with your body's response to stress. It helps with anxiety. It helps with emotions. So looking in the green box, these are some of 4 of my favorites. We've got Passiflora incarnata, which is passion flower. It's going to decrease anxiety, quiets the mind. It's relaxing. So passion flower is really good for quieting the mind. If you're having trouble sleeping, if you buy like a passion flower tea at night and take it, it won't put you to sleep, but it shuts your thoughts off. And then you fall asleep, because sometimes we're up because we're just go, go, go. It gets you to shut your thoughts off, and it does relax you. Lavandula angustifolia, this is lavender. Lavender, whether you use the actual herb, which I love, or if you use the essential oil, it's good at calming you. It releases tension. It releases tension mentally, and it also releases tension in the body. I actually put lavender. I have a herbal bath salts, and I actually add lavender into it because it melts those muscles. It just helps. So for athletes, it's really good to soak in that. It helps with sleep. This will help you go to sleep as well. Melissa Officinalis is lemon balm. Lemon balm. It decreases stress. It's very calming. One thing I like to make a note on lemon balm is it's thyrosuppressive. So if you already are at a hypothyroid state, you just need to be very careful with how much Melissa you take, because it decreases thyroid function. If you're hyperthyroid, it's good at helping that thyroid get back regulated. My favorite adaptogen is Withania somnifera, which common name is ashwagandha. An adaptogen are herbs that are specifically made to help your body regulate the physiological process associated with stress, so that you don't have some of the side effects. So adaptogens are good. They support your adrenals. They help keep your adrenals functioning properly. So I love to add adaptogens in. Ashwagandha is one of my favorite adaptogens. It's an inflammation modulator, so it helps decrease inflammation within the body. And also, because I work in sexual health, it's a sexual rejuvenation herb, and so it's really good at helping with libido and mood and passion. So I love ashwagandha. Other herbs that are really good: rosemary. Rosemary is really good at bringing blood flow to the brain, and so it helps blood flow to the brain. It's really good with memory. If you're studying, like you have children who are studying and they're having trouble focusing and remembering, rosemary essential oil is really good to help with that. And it also kind of brings peace as well. Rhodiola is another adaptogen that I like. Damiana and horny goatweed are good for sexual rejuvenation. Again, I always throw those in there because they are amazing. They're really good. Damiana is really good for libido. And it helps, it's like a nervine, so it helps with your nerves. So it helps with sensitivity. So it helps with that. And horny goatweed is another libido herb. Eleutherococcus, which is ginseng. Ginseng is going to be energy, thoughts, focus. Ginseng is a really good herb. And then Centella asiatica, which is gotu kola. This is another one that's going to bring like a refreshing to your mind, like blood flow to your mind. It helps clear your mind, clear thoughts with thinking and processing information. So gotu kola is another one. Some lifestyle recommendations: as much as possible, avoiding processed and fried foods. Processed foods have a lot of extra added chemicals in it that disrupt our physiological processes. So trying to not eat processed food. High sugar and caffeine. So lots of sugar sugar dampens your immune system. So it's going to put you at the risk for more illnesses because your immune cells get heavy with the sugar and then they can't process. It also affects your mood. And then high sugar can help cause, diabetes, things like that. So we want to make sure we're avoiding high sugar. And sugar comes from pastas, breads, sweets, not just things that taste sweet, right? So spaghetti doesn't taste sweet, but spaghetti is going to raise your blood sugar through the roof. Bread doesn't taste sweet, but it's going to raise your blood sugar through the roof. Alcohol does not taste sweet, but when your body processes it and breaks it down, it becomes all sugar as well. Just got to make sure you're remembering those things as well. Caffeine, overstimulating sometimes can be just as bad. A little bit of caffeine is okay, but you want to be careful with too much caffeine, and caffeine disrupts hormones. Exercise, 30 minutes at least 3 days a week. This is not just for your physical health. It's going to be really good for your heart and your blood and your cholesterol and your blood pressure. Exercise is great for that, right? But also with your sexual health and your mental health. Sexual health is going to give you more libido. It boosts testosterone, especially when you're doing heavy weightlifting. Weightlifting is a way to naturally boost your testosterone levels. And remember, ladies, not only does testosterone give us libido, but it also makes us feel happy and feel good. So that's what does that. And also when you do an intense exercise and you've worked up a sweat, you release dopamine in the brain. This is what makes this is your feel good neurotransmitter or brain hormone. Neurotransmitter is just a big word for a brain hormone. So it's releasing that dopamine in the brain, and now all of a sudden you feel good. This is how some people get addicted to drugs is because it affects the dopamine pathways. So exercise can be that. For some people who have addictions, I recommend exercising because they can sometimes get a similar high as they can to that addiction. So exercise is very important. And so for us, exercise is going to make our mood feel better and great. Nature walks, multifaceted here as well. Going outside, you're going to be exposed to the sun, fresh air. You're going to feel refreshed. Being in nature is something we were created to do. When God made man, he put us in a garden to live because everything we needed was in that garden. All the oxygen we needed, to our mood stimulators, our food, everything we needed to, our medicine, all of that was in that garden at that time, right? So it's meant for us to be in nature, and we've kind of pulled ourselves away from that. And so we need to get back outside in nature. Sun is going to help boost our vitamin D levels. We are low in vitamin D almost naturally. So the sun is going to help boost our vitamin D levels. A deficiency in vitamin D can cause depression. It makes our mood worse. So you want to make sure that you're getting outside, and you probably need to supplement vitamin D as well. So make sure you're talking to your doctor to see where your vitamin D levels are, but not just supplementing vitamin D, going outside. Again, being reconnected to nature is going to just help with your mood. There's a thing called green therapy, where literally if you're feeling depressed, sad, overwhelmed, going outside in the trees and the grass and spending time in these parks will boost your mood. So nature walks are really good. Sometimes when you're feeling really stressed, sometimes you just need to take a couple of big, deep breaths in and let them out. And if you're outside and you're by some trees, if you touch those trees and deep breaths in and out, you'll start to see how you just feel better. Something that I always mention, and I want to make sure we normalize this in our communities, is therapy. We want to make sure that we are going to therapy. It doesn't have to be that you need to go every week, but you do need to check in. The great thing about therapy is I think there's just a negative connotation because you think someone is just sitting there with a notepad and a pen and they're just judging you as you talk and they're like, But honestly, what therapy does is therapy equips you with the tools that you need to process and heal through the things that you've gone through. Because we don't sometimes naturally know how to get through these things. Again, when we were talking about deliverance, I described therapy for me as my how in deliverance. Therapy for me gave me the tools that I needed to walk that deliverance out that God had already promised me. And I didn't have the tools to heal. I didn't have the tools to deal with my past traumas. And so therapy was that. I went in, I would talk about some things, I'd get it off my chest because the organs cry tears, the eyes never shed. So I had to get things off my chest. And then they would in turn be like, okay, go read this, study this, try this exercise. It just gave me the tools to become the better version of myself. And so we want to make sure we're normalizing therapy. And if you take care of your physical health and you go to the doctor for physicals, you need to make sure you're checking in on your mental health just as regularly, if not more. So we've talked about how stress affects all aspects of our health, how important it is to make sure we take time for ourselves to relax. We want to make sure that we're making healthy lifestyle changes. And now that you know that there are natural remedies and things that you can do to help, there's things that you can incorporate into your everyday routine that can help you be a better version of yourself. We want to make sure we're always checking in because we want to be the best version emotionally as well. So we got to make sure we're doing the work to be the better versions of ourselves. Are there any questions?
Now, I hope people are not shy. I think that was amazing. Very, very amazing. I do have a question.
Okay.
Let me go back into my notes because I took quite a few notes. Where is it? I want you to kind of elaborate on re-traumatizing because I don't think a lot of us understand that.
The re-traumatization part
yes,
that
the
I'm talking
re-traumatization.
about? So that could be, again, a whole nother topic. But when I say re-traumatizing, so when you've gone through, let's take us out of it for a minute and let's just use an example. Let's look at a war vet, right? They go to war and they see horrible things. They're seeing people get shot. They're seeing people die. They're hearing bombs and all this stuff. And so when they come back here, A firework can be like a trigger for them, and it can kind of like replay what's happened for them before. And so they are kind of in this constant state of like this trauma. And that's what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. What we don't realize as African Americans is we too have PTSD, because we've seen our loved ones, we've seen other people who look like us, our children, especially nowadays, it's our children in the streets that are being murdered. It's just like, and with our parents and our grandparents, they grew up seeing the strange fruit in the trees. This is trauma. And every time we see it again, it happens to us all over again. And it can cause literal problems within the body. It's releasing those stress hormones. Our blood vessels may be constricting and we're not getting proper blood flow through the body. Our heart rate is speeding up. Our breathing can change. All of these things, so you're not getting oxygenated. This is what's physically happening every time we see another hashtag someone's name. Perfect example. I can't speak for nobody else. I'm going to just tell you what I went through. When they were getting ready to do the verdict last week for Derek Chauvin, I don't know about anybody else, but when I say I was so anxious because I just did not know what they were going to say. In my mind, the sense, my common sense, my knowledge was like, he's guilty. They're going to say guilty. There's nothing else to say. But because how many times have we been in a situation before where they've been guilty, it's been taped, we know it happened, and it was not guilty, that every time I was like, he's guilty, there was something that would pull me back and be like, It like even took my hope away. It like silenced my hope. Like, nope, you can't get excited. You can't have any positive expectations right now, because that's re-traumatizing. There were so many of us who are literally like holding our breath, like, and we had to wait like an hour before they even came out with the verdict. I got up, I redecorated my whole office. I moved furniture because I just couldn't sit still, because I just was like, I can't handle this. And it really showed me different areas that I still needed to do some healing on my own, right? Different things, because these things are happening to us so regular. It's not normal for you to see someone get killed. That's not normal. But for us, it's become our norm. We see it on the TV day after day after day, and no one is dealing with and addressing what that's doing to our psyche, what that's doing to us mentally. Why are we having nightmares? All of a sudden now we can't even, I have a little boy. It took me the longest time to be at peace while he's outside at the playground. And that should be normal. I shouldn't be stressed because he's going outside to play. We shouldn't be worried every time our kids leave the house, every time our loved ones leave the house. If we see a police officer, we shouldn't hold our breath and pray that they will drive past us. So all of these things, that's what I'm saying about being re-traumatized. There's signs of PTSD that we have to deal with, and and that's what therapy is really good for. They give you techniques, and I go to therapy and stuff, and I know some of the techniques, and there's still areas I struggle. Because like I said, that hour that I waited for that verdict, and then after it happened, how many of us didn't even allow ourselves to celebrate? Because we were like, I want to be happy, but this something ain't right. Again, because history showed us that we can't have this hope. We can't experience good things. And it's bad that happens to us, and we don't address that and deal with that. So those are the things I'm saying, where sometimes we get constantly re-traumatized. We're already under stress. We have our own traumas that happened. It can be, you may have been abused as you may be sexually abused as a little girl, right? And now you have your own children. And anytime somebody even looks your way, you be ready to fight. Like, don't look at my child. And they could literally be trying to look past you to see somebody on the other side of you, but you've kind of grasped yourself because you have your trauma. And that's a trigger. Those are those triggers. So that's what I'm saying. There's things that have been re-traumatizing us, and we have to deal with our pain and trauma so that we aren't triggered all the time, because trigger releases that stress response as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richardson. I'm going to stop sharing. You're going to email me this so I can email the slideshow to the
Yes.
Participants. All right.
I can do that.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to see these beautiful faces, and maybe that'll give us enough courage to ask some questions. Anybody else have any questions?
I'll start.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
I'm
you.
sorry.
1 minute. We got a couple of
Oh,
questions, but
Lynette. Hi, thank you,
tell me,
everyone. Thank you.
tell me when, I'm sorry, Lynette. You ready, Doc? She looks.
I'm ready. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Lynette. I think she's a little lagging a little.
Thanks, Dr. Richardson, for presenting. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
So I mean, this is my first time on, Women of Wisdom. Kim's been inviting me, and I finally joined, and it's just amazing what God does when he brings you to a forum like this, because you touched on so many things that I'm dealing with. And as I wrote in the chat, like, I didn't grow up, going to therapy. You had the belt or you had church. That was it. We didn't talk about this stuff in my family. Just dealt with stuff. So I didn't start dealing with my childhood trauma as well as my combat trauma, which you talked about. So I am a combat veteran. So what you talked about really hit home. But everything, you talked about having thyroid issues. My thyroid has started acting up. So now I've been diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease. But I don't want to go into all of this stuff. What I want to talk about is when I first started showing signs of PTSD and trauma, I didn't know what it was. I just had heart palpitations. They sent me to the heart doctor, and that's what we thought the problem was, until they started to dig deeper. And when it really got bad was when I started having suicidal ideations. And we got down to a team. I was hospitalized, and a team sat with me and they asked me what kept me from taking my life. And I told them that my faith kept me from taking my life. So today's forum is really touching me because, you just combined science with faith, and you're encouraging all of us to get help when we need it, that there's no shame in it. And I was so ashamed for so long because I felt like a failure. And I felt like, how could I have been trained so well to do this job and I come back all messed up, So I'm happy to say that I'm in a healthy place. I'm crying, but I'm crying because I'm joyful. And I praise God for you today, for Kim, for inviting me, and for everybody that's here, because we live to see another day to give this testimony and encourage others when we have some really tough times. So thank you.
Thank you, Lynette, so much for sharing. And I grew up the same way, church and the belt. I don't think it was an or for me. I had church and the belt. Sometimes the belt in church, it was it was bad. I was at church every day. And that's what I said, we're not taught about ways to process our emotions and ways to do this thing. We're told to pray. And I'm not saying we need to pray. Remember, it was in my presentation, but we're told to pray and then God will deliver you. And then that's it. And I don't know how many times I would go to the altar and pray for deliverance, and I'd go and I'd feel good in the moment because that it was a very emotional moment. Then I'd get home and I'd be like, no, that thing is still here. And eventually I felt like I was doing something wrong because I wasn't getting that deliverance. And a part of the deliverance process that we're missing is the tools that you need that to help you walk through that deliverance and to deal with the healing and the trauma. And it's very brave. The strongest of the people are the ones who reach out and get help. So the weak people are the ones who can't deal with it. The weak people are the ones who are like, nope, not even, nope, I know I need to, nope, 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 nope. And they ignore. It takes a very strong person to deal with their personal traumas and heal through that thing because it hurts and it's not comfortable. And you can have dark moments. Going through my own healing and dealing with my own traumas, I'm telling you guys, it's not an easy thing. They're simple concepts. So it's simple in concept. While we're talking about it, it sounds simple. It's simple in concept, but it's not easy in process. It's going to be hard. And that's what makes you so strong. But when you come out of those things, you know what I'm saying? When you get that beauty for your ashes, you're a whole nother place. And this is the things that we're trying to attain and the things we've been praying for, because we're saying, God, I need this, or I want to be here, or I'm asking for you to elevate here. I want you to open these doors. And sometimes doors can't open until we've healed in certain areas, because God doesn't want you to ruin that thing he gave you. So he has to get you to a place where you've healed through, because if not, you would fumble. You've heard people say fumble in the bag. You'd fumble that thing God gave you, and you'd be like, oh man, I ruined another opportunity. So we have to go through that healing process. It's critical in our elevation to heal and be whole. And that's what I'm here to help encourage you guys to do, is be heal and be whole. Because to be the best version of yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, you got to do the work, and it takes work. And so Lynette, you are strong for what you're doing and what you're going through. And so I congratulate you and I celebrate you, because that process is not easy at all.
Thank you. I did want to add one last thing. You talked about a naturopathic. At one point, I was on 8 different medications that the military put me on. And today, I'm on no psychotropic medications. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. They're there for a reason, but I'm on herbal medications, a lot of supplements, yoga, and meditation. You know, I see my therapist weekly, but I have been able, again, through the grace of God, to wean myself off of all of the medications. And, you know, I mean, I'm just blessed. It's the struggle every single day, but it's a struggle that I'm very aware of, and I'm able to manage it. Just recently, I had to go and get some magnesium. That's what my doctor recently told me to go get. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're doing the work. And medicine I'm not against medicine. I use medicine, and especially mental health. There's some times where you have to kind of use that medication to get stable, to get to a baseline, to stabilize you. So we can because we can't address some things, because sometimes you can be so much is going on here, we can't even get to what's going on, because it's just like, and so we need the medicine to kind of get you stable and to think clearly and put you in a place where you want to do the work. Then we do the work. Then we can slowly start weaning you off the medicines. Then we can replace the medications with the herbs. So we do some of both. So I definitely think it's definitely something that is necessary.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Lynette. I'm glad you're with us today. Hopefully we'll see you more and more and more. I think Elaine, is that you over there?
Yes, she said fibroids and herbs, anything helpful.
Okay.
So with fibroids, it depends on how big your fibroids are. Unfortunately, once a fibroid gets certain size, there's nothing I can give you that'll make it go away completely, because it's gotten too big. But there's things you can do to keep it from growing, and there's things we can do to avoid them altogether. Is Elaine still on here? Oh,
yeah. I'm right here.
Oh, I'm like, I could have swore I saw her name. I just wanted to make sure you weren't gone. So with fibroids is, for those who don't know, it's when you get these masses that grow. They can grow on your ovaries, uterus, different places. And usually these masses are like muscle, so to speak, are stimulated by excess estrogen. So estrogen, too much estrogen goes, and it can cause those fibroids. They can cause abdominal pain. They can make your periods really heavy and painful. They can even make sex uncomfortable. So they're very uncomfortable. One of the things that I do when I have people with fibroids is we change their diet. And this is not usually what people want to hear, but diet is very, very crucial in a lot of your healing. I try to put them on a more plant-based diet, because a lot of the meats that we eat are full of hormones too. And that's just adding to the hormones in your body, and it can make it worse. So I try to put them on a more plant-based diet. I definitely, anybody with any autoimmune conditions, any severe GI things going on, fibroids, I take you off of gluten and dairy. And I know people are like, oh, there goes my cheese and bread. Yep. Gluten and dairy. Gluten is very, 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 gluten in the United States, because I've heard of people who have actually allergies to gluten who can go to Italy and eat pasta. But if they ate pasta here, they'd have a reaction because they're allergic to it. So I only can speak of the food here. I don't know enough about the chemistry of the food in other places. But gluten is very inflammatory. It's one of the #1 inflammatory foods out there. So if you've got a lot of inflammation and a lot of illness and you can't figure out where it's coming from, gluten could be a cause. And so everything, like nowadays, everyone sees this gluten-free and like it must be another fad, but gluten itself is very inflammatory. So I take you off gluten and I take you off dairy. Dairy produces a lot of mucus within the body. It slows things down and it is very inflammatory as well. So dairy and wheat, gluten, you come off and try to eat more plant-based, meaning eat more whole foods, eating more fruits and vegetables as much as possible. If you're going to eat meats, eat lean cuts of meat. Try, if you can't afford it, you know, you have to be mindful of everyone's budget as well. And they make the real healthy stuff more expensive. And it's just, but if you can't afford it, if you're going to eat foods, wild caught seafoods, and organic and grass-fed meats, if you can. But definitely try to eat fruits and vegetables as much as possible. And there's so many substitutions now, plant-based substitutions. You want to stay away from some of them. With fibroids, be careful with your soy intake, because that can add to it. So we want to, also you'd want to do just like a search and make sure that your hygiene products aren't high in xenoestrogens, XENO estrogens. And I put it in the chat box, that word. And so, because you can like Google that word, xenoestrogens, and products that have those in those, or what xenoestrogens are. And those are adding to the excess estrogen in your body as well. So that can add to the process. So xenoestrogens. And then after I've done the diet, we've gone through, we've kind of cleaned up, we're making sure we're exercising, drinking lots of water, avoiding sugar as well. Then after that, there may be some herbs, I'm not sharing my screen, hold on, let me pull up, that you can take that are hormone modulators. Let me pull up my herbs. It'll be just a moment. That you can take that are good to help with balancing. Hold on, because I don't have them on the top of my head. But I have a list of herbs. But if your fibroids are really big, you may have to still go through the process of getting them removed, unfortunately.
I did radiation and all of that, so I'm kind of wrapping that up. And then I changed my diet, so I didn't know, because I know a lot of people go back and have to like redo the surgery. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure. Yeah.
Diet is going to be the biggest thing, and then search your products and see if there's any xenoestrogens in them. So that's why you can look up that word. There's this website, EWF, environmental, EG, I can't think of it at the moment. And they have a website where they list, like you can type in what lotion you're using and it tells you everything in it. Okay. It tells you how safe it is or how unsafe it is. You want to avoid those xenoestrogens as much as possible. Another thing that has high levels of xenoestrogen in it are, my graph sheet is pulling up, are plastics, styrofoam. So start using the glass containers, glass, steel water bottles, little things like that, because if you warm up food, warm it up on a plate, just because you won't be getting when the heat is going in there, it won't be bleeding into your food and adding more. So definitely removing plastics is big too. All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And then I got my herbs are coming up in just a moment. It has. It's loading slowly but surely. It's telling me to wait. But I'll get you the herbs in one moment. I'm just waiting for this to load. And I think I saw someone else's question. Oh, of course.
Yes.
As soon as
Can
it
you
loads, I was going to go to the next question.
The next question, I'll help you out. It's
Okay.
Ellen. I see her in the chat. Luz, you can go next. Ellen says, can you discuss injection therapy? Ellen,
okay.
Ellen, you go ahead, Doc.
So for me, when I do injection therapy, I do like B12 shots, the lipotropic shots, which people call like the weight loss shot, but really it's just a detoxifier. I do pushes. I don't do IVs anymore as much as I used to. I used to do O shots and P shots. It's something that I eventually do want to get back to doing. And so the O shots and the P shots are just where we do PRP injections. PRP stands for platelet-rich plasma. Platelet-rich plasma is really good at helping regenerate wherever you put it. It's something they've been using in ortho for about 20, 30 years, where they'll put the PRP into your joint spaces, and it could help regenerate some of your cartilage and your collagens. And so it's a step to do before you get to the point where you need surgery. I do it because I do sexual health. When I inject them for the ladies into the anterior vagina, or to the men directly into the penis, it helps for us women. It's going to help with muscle tone. So if you have some kind of weakness in the muscles and you're doing the exercises, you can't retone that. It helps with muscle tone. It helps with sensitivity in the G-spot. So for women who aren't having good orgasms and there's nothing else wrong and there's nothing else we've tried, it helps with things like that as well. So that's those are the injections that I do. But yeah.
Okay.
And injection therapy is also good for weight loss, because I don't know if everybody understands injection therapy and what it actually is. Can you discuss some of the injection therapy for weight loss?
Yep. So one of the ones we do is we do the B12, which is going to help with energy. We do the lipotropic shot, which is called MIC, methionine, inositol, and choline. These together with the B12 help increase phase 2 detoxification within your body. So it's going to really target your detoxification, and it helps with controlling your blood sugar levels so they don't go up or down. And so what happens then is, as you detoxify and you're maintaining your blood sugar, fat is stored. Your toxins are stored in fat. And so as your toxins start breaking down, your fat cells some of your fat starts breaking down as well. And so that's how you lose weight. As long as all of this weight loss, it has to be coupled with positive lifestyle. So you can get all the lipotropic shots you want. If you're eating McDonald's, Burger King, and Pizza Hut at night, every day, you're not going to lose weight. You can't outdo your diet. There's no shot that will erase the diet. But if it in conjunction with a healthy lifestyle, it should help.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks. Luz, you had a question? Go ahead.
Yes. Hi, Dr. Richardson.
Hello.
So I just want to share a little bit, and maybe you could give me some feedback. So I don't like to talk about this because I like to check out when I clock out. Mm-hmm. I'm an ER nurse. I've been an ER nurse for over 11 years, but I've been a nurse for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And you talk about trauma, and on top of my own trauma, I deal with everybody's trauma, right? So we vent a lot, you know what I mean? We get things out of our system. Sometimes it could be received as complaining, and I don't want to sound like I'm always complaining, but I feel like I need to just like release that. Mm-hmm. And part of the job, of course, is like you suppress everything that you're dealing with because you got to get from one room to the next. You got to get from one person to the next, and you can't bring what's in one room to the next room, right?
Right.
So I know you talk about diet, you talk about caffeine. I work night shifts, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So sometimes we don't eat, you know, you're like coffee or tea or whatever. And I do believe that the tea doesn't really help with, you know, with what I'm feeling, or, you know, it don't do my body good. But that's like what I need to keep going. You know, so on top of the physical and not really getting in the nutrients that you need, mentally, like what can you suggest just from within the 12-hour shift, you know, because I can't just walk out and be like, okay, I'm going to take my lunch, because there is no lunch, you know. So it's like what, besides the breathing exercise, man, what exercises, like what can I just do to just not hold on to this, you know?
So another thing, and this is a good question, and this is going to be relevant not just to Lou, so this is relevant to people who tend to, empathic people, who we tend to hold we feel what other people are going through. And you being in the healthcare field, especially being in the ER, it's almost impossible not to feel what other people are going through, because there's stories that are coming in, they can impact you. But like you said, you don't really have time to process. One thing you can do, and it kind of goes with the breathing, but one thing you can do is you have to find moments where you can ground yourself. And so it can be something as simple as if you're standing and your feet are flat on the floor, when you take that breath in, you're taking in, and when you release, you're saying that this does not belong to me. I have to do this in between patients sometimes, because sometimes I hear stuff and it can instantly want to become me. It can, that their stuff becomes my emotion. And so I have to remind myself, this does not belong to me. Take a deep breath in. This is what's mine, release it, but that does not belong to me. And it helps you keep you constantly releasing what the people are giving you, because if not, it can mentally become the most. You definitely want to make sure you're adding in some adrenal support to your routine. So maybe looking into some like ashwagandha and stuff. You can even, because your cortisol levels already are jacked up just because you're working the night shift. And whenever you stop working the night shift, it's going to take a long time to get you back the right way. It takes, it's our night shifters, it's our third shift patients. It's hard to get your body back. And you might actually want to look into when you are, I don't know how your sleeping is during the day, but maybe looking into, maybe you may need some melatonin because it's regenerated at night and you're working at the time. So, but you want to look into some adaptogens.
I sleep great during the day.
Okay, she said, oh no, she's like, I'm sleeping. Okay, so adaptogens are going to be really good for you. Taking those moments to, you're going to have to, and it doesn't have to be like 10-minute moments, right? It can be 30-second moments, but you have to keep reminding yourself, nope, this is not for me. This is not for me. This is kind of that, like those, doing those affirmations, those meditations, quick prayers, say your prayer, and you have to let them keep their stuff, because people's stuff jumps on you. And if you let it stay there, you'll be at home and you'll be like, I don't even know what's happened. Like today was just, oh my goodness, you almost feel crazy sometimes because you have 10, 15 different people's emotional issues on the inside of you. So you got to make sure you're being mindful to release their stuff and not hold on to it. Just like, I know you guys have heard like those stories where the man says every day before he comes home, he touches the tree outside, and that's like his way of leaving work outside on that tree. Something is, and that's real life. You have to kind of do something like that in between each patient. And it may just be 30 seconds, but definitely as far as like the other things you can do, get you some adaptogens. That's going to help with the stress, the physical effects on your body. You are being able to vent, but if you don't have a good vent partner, therapy is going to be something. Everybody in the healthcare field needs a therapist, because again, like I said, people's stuff you got to get all of that stuff out, and you see stuff some people can't imagine. And being in the ER, you probably see some horrible things sometimes. And so you want to make sure you have someone that you can, a safe place for you to talk about those things. If you're not eating, I would recommend getting like some nuts, some trail mixes, some protein bars, and keeping them in your pocket and taking a bite here and there, because you need that nutrition. You need healthy fats and you need protein to just give you the energy you need. So, and healthy fats so come from like avocados, olive oil, coconut oils, things like that. If you're not taking a fish oil supplement, you definitely want to take some fish oil too to add into your daily routine. And then just prayer.
Thank you, Dr.
You're welcome.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
so much. Thank you.
Hi, Kim. Hi,
Hi.
guys. I just wanted to
Hi,
add a little
Dr.
bit to that.
Moses.
Hello,
Hi, Dr. Moses.
darling.
Dr. Moses is
Hey,
with us,
guys.
y'all.
Yes, I am. I can't I'm down in Virginia babysitting with my daughter's puppy. Kim understands that. She had surgery.
Yes.
Now she's over here looking at me. But I just wanted to add to Dr. Richardson is one of the most amazing Black women I've ever met. And she's definitely a best kept secret. Just a best kept secret. But God has given us the ability, the wisdom, the know-how to do this. Anything God has called you into, he will prepare you for. So in addition to all the wonderful things that Dr. Richardson has suggested to our ER nurse, is that what may help a little bit is to understand whether or not you're in the right profession. Because some of us take jobs because our family took jobs. Some of us took jobs because it was the easiest thing for us to do. But was this the thing you were called to do? Because if you were called to do it, the Bible says that the blessings of the Lord maketh rich and addeth no sorrow. Because I was called to counseling, in the multiplicity of counsel, there's therapy, safety, so, and therapy. But if I was called to do it, how do I relieve, not take it home, make sure that I am in my best self at all times? Because how can I help somebody else if I'm not in my best self? Like Dr. Richardson says, you can take other people's stuff. And I'd like to add, you can also give other people stuff. So even as a clinician, if I'm not in my right state, I can put something on somebody that they do not deserve as well. So it definitely can't go back and forward. But as Dr. Richardson says, the faith part is really, really, really crucial. And if you are, and that's where therapy comes in, a good therapist will help you to determine, if I've been working in the wrong career for 10 years, 30 years, you will notice that there are so many people that after they finish their 30-year tour somewhere, 40-year tour somewhere, they may live 7 years after that because they've just worked 30 to 40 years of their life in a job that stressed them out. Now I can't even enjoy the retirement. So one of the things that I just want to add to all the wonderful things is that take a look. Is this the right profession for me? Because if helping you is killing me, I need to look at that a little harder. But I'm sure you're in your right profession, ER nurse. I'm just saying that, just putting another spin or thought on what we do with our lives also bears on our mental health. So when people ask me, how do you do what you do? I take it in one ear, I process it, and then do whatever the Lord or the Holy Spirit asks me to do with it. And then it goes out the other ear so that I can rest at night. And one of the things I tell myself, whoo, God, I thank you, this ain't my problem. Because the clinician doesn't have to have any answers. The answers are in the people with the issues. And we help you through your thought process. Just wanted to put that little tidbit in. Thank you. Shutting up now.
Thanks, Doc.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Moses.
Thank
That
you,
was
Dr.
great.
Moses. I appreciate that. Thank you.
That was good. I love Dr.
Yes.
Moses.
There's another question. I think it's from Amira. Can you change from a regular diet to plant-based while pregnant for the fibroids? Are these herbs okay during pregnancy?
So for the most part, I avoid herbs in pregnancy and lactation. Some are safe in lactation, but a lot of the hormone modulating herbs I would not do in pregnancy. Reason being, which I'm going to get ready to name some of the fibroid herbs. The reason why, a lot of them are hormone modulators, but they're also spasmolytic and they're also uterine tonics, and they could also kind of put you into labor. So we don't want to do that. So usually when people, and because you want to make sure you don't start regulating with your child pre-birth. So I usually avoid herbs with people who are pregnant. There's a few that are safe, but there's some that I don't do. And a lot of the herbs that I would do for fibroids, I wouldn't do. You can change to a plant-based diet. Just make sure you're being cognizant of your protein and make sure you're getting enough protein. I don't know if your doctor during pregnancy told you, but you want to make sure you're getting at least 60 grams of protein a day. That protein helps with the development for the baby. That protein helps for good labor and to maintain your pregnancy. So you want to make sure you're getting at least 60 grams of protein a day during pregnancy. It's hard, but it does help in the long run. And it definitely helps in labor when you've been getting the proper amount of protein to have that strength to deliver. So as far as that, fibroids, the diet will be helpful. Another thing that I didn't mention that you can do are yoni steams for people who've had those. And you ladies have probably heard of yoni steaming before. When you get some herbs, you can do it at home. If you don't have the chair with a hole in it, you can buy like a sitz pan and then just, make sure the water is steaming, but not too hot because sitz pans are a little bit closer to you. And so you can do like sitz pans, or you can get a pot, boil the water, and have the pot be I'm saying have the pot just be for yoni steams, and you'll see why. Some people may not care, but I'm saying let the pot just be for yoni steams, because you can sit the pot in the toilet and then you sit down and then you wrap yourself up with a blanket or a cover because you need to cover yourself to keep the steam in. And then you sit for 10-15 minutes. And then I usually do them in the evening, and then you can go to bed and relax. And that allows the herbs to do their job. And in there, when you're doing yoni steams, you want to have holy basil is good for yoni steams. Angelica is good for fibroids and for yoni steams. It's a hormone modulator. It's a uterine tonic. So it's really good for both of those. It says it's contraindicated in pregnancy. So I just want to be, if you're pregnant, I would just be careful with yoni steaming altogether, because that heat could put you into contractions and go into earlier. Black cohosh is really good for yoni steams as well. I always put like lavender and rose in my yoni steams. Some calendula, which is really good for skin. So that would be good to add in there. There are some other herbs that are really good for helping with pregnancy. They're called Partus preparators. And these are herbs that you can take like as a tea, and you start like a month before birth. And it helps prepare your uterus to expel the baby. And that would be Rubus idaeus is a good one for that. Michella repens, Mitchella repens, is really good for preparing your uterus for it's a Partus preparatory, getting ready for labor. It's also an astringent, so it's really good too for heavy periods, painful periods, fibroids. That's another good one. Red clover. Red clover is a good one. Red raspberry. That's a good one for yoni steams and for fibroids. So those are all good herbs that can help there. Vitex is good as well. So Vitex is an herb, and you can buy Vitex actually in capsules. Vitex would be good for like endometriosis, fibroids, it helps regulate periods as well, and it helps with PMS. And then was that both parts of her question?
Yes. Was that it, Amira?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. We have another
Sheila,
question.
hair products.
Yes, she said something about hair products. I don't see her anymore, but it doesn't really, it's not a thorough question. So I'm not sure what she meant by that.
And maybe she was mentioned when we were talking about fibroids, maybe she was saying that they can, certain like perms and things, the chemicals in them have been shown to cause fibroids.
I thought she was talking about the xenoestrogens. I think
there are hair products that have them in there too. Yep. And so
really?
and,
okay.
Yep. So and that's what I'm saying, like perms for ladies who are still perms, there has been research to show that they can cause fibroids.
Wow.
Wow. So I'm team natural. I've been natural now since 2008. And I just locked my hair in January, but before then I was big fro, and it was the best decision I made. It's not an easy one though. I just tell people
it's not.
Because you miss being able sometimes to just throw that hair in a ponytail and walk out the door. Like ain't no brushing once you get that natural hair out. It's not a brush that really helps. So it's not easy, but it was a good decision for my health. What are your thoughts of keto diet? I love the keto diet. I can't say that I would think that the keto diet is something you could maintain for long periods of time, but it's really good for people with insulin resistance. It's really good at helping reset your blood sugar and reset your insulin production. So keto diet is good for that. It's amazing for weight loss. Because you're literally just eating protein and healthy fats. And so all that sugar that causes weight and dysregulates hormones is being eliminated from your diet. And so you lose a lot of weight. The problem is with that weight loss is as soon as because when you do anything super restrictive, when you slip back, you like binge everything you've been missing. And so you do keto, you lose, and then you slip up and you're like, oh man, that piece of bread or that pizza was so good. You eat like pizza every day for 2 weeks and then all the weight came back. So you just have to be careful. So if you do it for weight loss, just be careful on making sure you maintain it. But keto is really good. It's really healthy for the brain because of all of the healthy fats. Don't be the person who does keto and they're like, all I eat is bacon and steak and butter. Don't be that keto person. Make sure you're eating your vegetables. It's very important to still have, because you need the vitamins and minerals in your vegetables. So eat your vegetables, and then you can have some bacon and steak too. But make sure you're eating your vegetables. You have to have your vegetables. Best detox tea. Oh, I don't use a lot of detox teas. I make a lot of my own. I can tell you, as far as things to look for in detox teas, like when you're looking at the back, one of the biggest herbs you want to make sure you're looking for is milk thistle. Milk thistle is one of the best detox herbs. It's really good for the liver. So milk thistle needs to be in any detox product you take. Try to find something that doesn't have a lot of fillers. I'm very particular with the supplements I use. I do have a site where you can buy any supplement you want to. It's on my website. At the bottom of my homepage, you'll see a thing that says for professional grade supplements. Click here and it says full script. So you got ladies are more than welcome to go on there and shop. I trust those products more than I trust some of the stuff at the store. If I had to buy retail brands of things, some of the brands, oops, hold on. I'm trying to type and tell you guys. Some of the brands that I trust include Gaia, Now Foods is pretty good. Pure Encapsulations is a good one. What other ones? Nordic Naturals sometimes get sold in the stores. Oh, the one, what's the name of that one? These are brands that I trust in the stores as far as supplements are concerned, because I know that they have good practices on how they make their supplements. Everyone's not the same. And just because it's not regulated by the FDA, there may be products that have certain claims and they might not be accurate. Okay. So those are some of the ones that I like. What can you do to substitute coffee? Why are you taking the coffee? Is it
That's my question.
Are you just taking the coffee because you like the taste, or are you drinking coffee because you don't have any energy?
Well, I don't know. I think it's both. I think it's both.
Because you're not going to find anything that really tastes like coffee that supplements it. But what I can say is if you're doing it for energy, then I would start looking at why don't you have any energy? And so then the adaptogens, that ashwagandha, rhodiola, those are going to be really good at helping build your body back up, your adrenals back up, because you've got that fatigue from the stress. All of the things that we mentioned on practices on how to manage your stress is going to help you with your fatigue and give you energy. Exercise, 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 exercise. Like, it's crazy that something that makes you tired gives you so much energy, but exercise is going to help get the energy back up too. So if that's what you're doing and you're taking coffee, if you can't sleep at night and that's why you're out of energy, then we got to start looking at your sleep cycles. And the first thing I'm going to do is give you some adaptogens because it's likely your adrenals. There's a product called Cortisol Manager that you take at night, and it helps keep your cortisol levels low while you're sleeping. And then they come back up in the morning. And it takes some time. Cortisol Manager doesn't work overnight. It takes time to regulate your sleep and fix your adrenals. I did not take care of myself, and I was jacked up. By the time I got out of medical school, I probably couldn't even, you asked me what 1 + 1 was, and I'd be like, like I was really jacked up from my adrenal fatigue. And I'm 2 years out now, and I'm starting to get back to normal. So it took some time. It took 6 months before I could feel like I could walk straight because I was really jacked up. But it took a long time to just get me regulated and get my memory back. And it took a lot of work. And sleeping is still not the best, but it's much better than it was because I could go like a couple of days without sleep. That was adrenal fatigue and PTSD. I had a lot going on. So, so sleep takes a while to get together, but it does get better as long as you put the work in.
Okay.
It does get better.
Anybody have any more questions? It's been an hour and a half. Dr. Richardson's been with us for a while, and it's been wonderful information. If you look in the chat, she put her website there. We're going to email the slide to you. Once she emails it to me, I'll put it in a group. And if I don't have your email, just text me in a WhatsApp and I will add you there. Any more questions before we chime out? And thank her very much. Anybody else? Anybody else? Doc, we appreciate you so much. This information was amazing.
Thank you. I really enjoyed being here. I appreciate you guys having me. I never take it for granted when I'm given the opportunity to speak over someone, even if it's just an educational type presentation. I never take it for granted because words are powerful. So I thank you guys for giving me that opportunity. And I'm honored that you allowed me to speak to you.
Absolutely. Let's give her an air clap so she knows that we love her and we thank her and we want her back. And please reach out to Dr. Richardson. Dr. Richardson, can they contact you through the chat? I mean, through your website?
So if you go on my website, I do free consults, free 15-minute consults. If you're thinking about being a patient, but you're not sure. So you can do that. You can schedule that on my website. Also on my website, if you already know, like, nope, I need you to be, you're in New York, so I can't be your doctor, but I can be a consultant for you. If you already know, like, I need you to be my health consultant, you can go right under the appointment tabs. There's, for the first appointment, I would say you would want a full appointment, which is about an hour, because I ask a lot of questions and I'm gonna get all in your business. That's just the first time. After that, it goes much quicker, but it helps me because I need to see the whole person, not just bits and pieces. So you can set up the full appointments there. If you want to see me for just like as for therapy, like not as necessarily, there's nothing physical you want to talk about. I call myself an empowerment coach, because my goal, I don't like the term life coach, because I don't want you to come and think I'm going to fix your life. That's not my job. I can't fix anything. But what my job is I motivate you and empower you, and then I can give you tools to help you do the work, and you can fix your life. And so I call myself an empowerment coach. And so I do have empowerment coaching sessions as well. And so if you're interested in those, you can book that on the website as well.
Okay. Everybody heard that? We're all good? Doc, please have a wonderful rest of your day. We know you got more hours in the day left than we do, so you go do your thing.
Yes, my day is just getting started. I have emailed you the slides, so you should have them.
Thank you so much. I'm going to send it to everybody. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us today on this wild platform. We do Bible study on Sundays at 3:00, but at times we definitely want to invite people to give courageous information, because church is not, God is not always about, let's study the Bible. We know the Bible, but God wants us to get into what he's given us already, the herbs, the real talks, the conversations, all that stuff and what we're doing. So ladies, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Richardson, thank you. Thanks again. Dr. Moses, thank you. I see Denise Wright over there. Hi, Miss Wright. I thank you for coming. And Lynette, thank you for your first time. Everybody have a wonderful, blessed afternoon. And if you're not on the WhatsApp, let me know. I'll add you. Have a blessed, wonderful rest of the afternoon. Take care.
Have a good day there, guys. See you later.
Have a good night. Thank you so much.